everyone, welcome back to my video channel. In today's video, the first video, I'm going to briefly update you on my interests post Kate Winslet, when I gradually stopped being so interested in Kate Winslet and the intensity of the obsession died down. So what happened was that as I became more aware of of my differences, and during the process of finding out that I had Asperger's, and I'll talk about this in another video about what happened with regard to diagnosis and everything, I started to become increasingly kind of interested in finding out exactly how I worked, what was different about me, and that led to me to getting really quite interested in psychology and the mechanics of anxiety. So I read lots and lots of books, lots and lots of psychology books, all about anxiety and how to overcome it. And I think this was quite helpful in a way. I did become a special interest because that kind of it was a lot of sort of self-help books and things. And I would say that helped me. This was before I was getting proper therapy as well, because I did receive some therapy for my issues at the mental health team, but because I didn't understand autism, and this was before I got diagnosed, it didn't really help me. So a lot of, and it was only once I actually got diagnosed that I started to make improvements once I realised, so I'll talk about this in another video. It was the help I got. Obviously I couldn't have made the achievements I had done without that help and support, and without the knowledge of what my problems were and that validation from other people. But I did go away and do a lot of reading on my own, and that really helped me, just because it made me feel less alone, and it gave me some kind of ideas about how to improve myself. One of my interests after Kate Winslet I got really very, very interested in was psychoanalysis. I know psychoanalysis, I don't know why I became so interested in it. I think I kind of became very introspective, which is funny because during my teen years I wasn't introspective at all. I didn't really think about any of these things, and then suddenly I became really interested in it as my awareness grew and stuff. So I found it was really interesting, dream interpretation. Obviously psychoanalysis isn't just about dream interpretation, but kind of going inward and looking at sort of what might be going on. A lot of it was kind of looking back at psychoanalysis. It's about kind of exploring how your past and stuff kind of influences you in the present and stuff, and things that you might not automatically be aware of, and it's quite deep and quite philosophical. But I did a lot of reading around psychoanalysis, and one particular person that I found particularly interesting, he's a philosopher, he was a French philosopher, was Jacques Lacan. And I read a lot about him. He's really, really, really difficult to understand, however, and I can't remember a lot of what I read now, stuff to do with the symbolic, the imaginary, the real, and it's all very I can't. If you ask me what the symbolic, imaginary, and the real is, I won't really be able to answer, because I can't really remember half of it, and that's the case with a lot of my obsessions. At the time I know everything about it, and then later on I can sort of vaguely remember it, but it's it's kind of, I don't know, stored somewhere deep, 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 and I can't quite access it. Although if I started reading about it again, it would all come back. So I became interested in that, and then also more how people work and social. So I read all these textbooks all about social psychology and stuff, trying to understand kind of how people worked, and that helped me become. And I became really, really, very interested in this. As I said, with my Kate Winslet interest, I was already quite kind of interested in that anyway, about but basically just obviously obsessed with the person Kate Winslet, not people in general, just Kate Winslet. But after Kate Winslet, I became more interested in the sort of psychology of why people are the way they are, and it became really interesting. Fairy tale interpretation was a brief interest. I read a book by Bettelheim, who's this other psychoanalyst, and he looked at fairy tales and the interpretation of fairy tales. It's quite I found quite a lot of it quite funny, because as you know, psychoanalysis, a lot of it, some of the interpretations are very, very, very weird. It's all about, it's all, everything is to do with the phallus. Don't ask me why, but that's psychoanalysis for you. It's strange. It's there's more to life than a phallus, Yeah, but I found it quite funny. Anything and everything in fairy tales is all basically meant to be a phallic metaphor, apparently. The history of a mental health treatment became a very strong interest. Mental health. That led on to interest in philosophy. So I read Foucault, Madness and Civilization. Very, very difficult read. I don't recommend that one unless you want a really, really difficult marathon of the mind. It is incredibly difficult. I wouldn't have read it without Spark Notes helping me. So interested in symbolism, culture, ideas. Outside of philosophy and social criticism, and I became very, very interested in politics and social activism, how society is structured and how it could be improved. So reading books such as A Radical History of Britain, became interested in people like Tom Paine, Injustice by Daniel Dorling. I'll show you some of these books in my next video. Became interested in listening to radical music like Woody Guthrie from America. Listened to him over and over again, and Pete Seeger's folk songs. This is when I became very, very interested in politics. And I think part of the reason why I became so interested in radical politics was because I feel like an outsider myself, and it sort of helped me feel secure and confident knowing that, really, that people had boldly asserted themselves in the face of oppression and injustice. As a minority, being in a minority with the Asperger's, I felt a kinship with other minorities at some sort of intellectual level, if not an emotional level. So I became very interested in feminism, and I read Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Tea, funny enough, became an interest for some time. And I think this is because I revisited some of my earlier interests. Obviously, as I talked about in a previous video, I was very, very interested in food as a child. And this is a lifelong interest. So I revisited that earlier interest, but I took it to new dimensions. So I became, and lately I've become more interested in sort of like cooking. And I mean, I've always been interested in cooking. It's just that lately I've become that bit more interested in that. And I became interested in tea for a while. I used not to like tea, but then I developed a liking for it. And once I developed a liking for tea, I wanted to find out everything about it. And I'm not entirely sure why this is, but it might be because tea sort of evokes homely warmth and safety. And I also enjoyed the meditative philosophy associated with it. There's a whole philosophy associated with tea, believe it or not. So I became very interested in tea history and culture. And more recently still, my interest in social criticism and psychology has become more philosophical, as I've already mentioned. And I'm particularly interested in the 1960s, you know, the bright colours, the verve and optimism. And I sort of have a sort of nostalgia for the 1960s, even though I wasn't alive during the era. I don't know, I'm kind of like a bit of a latter-day hippie, but I don't take LSD. I don't know, no, I'm not like a hippie, but I do kind of like their values, and I don't know, I like the sort of hippie sort of ethos, you know, the sort of optimism, the positivity, for kind of like, I don't know, sort of like peace, you know, no war, peace, yeah, just like happy living, you know. I don't know if you've seen a film for Big Lebowski, but that kind of like dudism I'm interested in as well. Take it easy, yeah, just chillax sort of thing. I'm the most stressed person ever, but I like this philosophy is, you know, helps you on the road to trying just to be a little bit more peaceful, so it's quite helpful. Yes, and I'm very, very interested in public speaking and raising awareness of autism, hence why I'm doing this video. That's in a way another special interest of mine, and blog writing. Autism, culture and politics. These are all interests. And very interested in words. Part of this is connected to the fact I have synesthesia. I will be talking about synesthesia in another video, but I see words and letters in colour. And I think that makes me particularly interested in words, because everything's very vivid and you know, vibrant, and I just love words and reading in general. Every time I learn a new word or a new philosophical name, I get very, very, very excited. So these are all my more modern interests, and I think they help me, these modern interests, the interests that I've developed since Kate Winslet. They help. Kate Winslet obviously served her purpose when I was a teenager and I had no friends, very, very isolated, helped me get through my adolescence, gave me a role model. That was really helpful. My current interests help me because philosophy helps me with my anxiety, it helps me develop meaning. Learning about like how people work kind of makes me understand the world a bit more, makes me feel a bit less confused, a bit more and makes me feel like I don't know, it just makes me feel like a bit more positive, and like I can help myself. I read a lot of self-help books, and reading is very, very good. It's very, very, very therapeutic. I can't overestimate that enough. And like I said, my interest in politics and particularly kind of social criticism and identification with other minorities, learning about feminism, you know, very interested in the labour movement, things like that. I think, again, because I'm a minority with autism, I identify with these other minorities. It makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel that there is this movement of like socially oppressed people who say, we're not taking this shit, we're actually, you know, we're not sitting down, we're not putting up with it. That makes me feel part of a bigger picture and makes me feel more connected and makes me feel like like, you know, I'm not going to sink down in some kind of like apathy. It gives me confidence, and it makes me feel that people have been fighting historically against injustice for centuries, and I'm part of this kind of bigger struggle. So that's really helpful. And like I said, my interest in autism is more current, and I'm interested in autism awareness, you know, and like trying to raise awareness of it, because that's really very, very important for me. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you.